Hey, it's Jason Solomon and Scott O'Connell. Today's video is built specifically for small business owners and self-employed 1099 contractors. And the whole point of this video is to introduce retirement plans that are available to this group of people. So this is very, very important for people who are physicians, chiropractors, roofing contractors, HVAC business owners, salespeople who are 1099 contracted, anybody who has a 1099 as their primary source of income. This video is going to teach you about retirement plans that will do two things. One, save on taxes because your contributions actually count as a tax deduction. And number two, build a bigger retirement. Now, before we dig too far into this, Scott and I are financial advisors. We're not CPAs, we're not lawyers, but we are the quarterback that connects the dots for you. Most of your CPAs know about these programs. Most of your legal team knows about these programs. But as we'll discuss later in this video, a lot of the clients like you aren't familiar with what you can do, what you can't do, and what might work best for you. And so I'm going to pass this on to Scott. Scott, why don't you introduce the four different plans that we typically see people using, and then also the contribution limits that come along with these plans.
Yeah, so many of you are familiar with some retirement plans such as 401ks and traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs. You may have had those in the past. You may have had a 401k with your previous employer, or your spouse may have one currently. But there are a few other types of retirement plans that, as Jason mentioned, can help you save in taxes currently, which is great, and save for the future for your retirement. Now, everyone's at a different stage in their career, and many folks come to us where they get to a spot where they say, well, I'm saving enough money, I have some extra cash flow, what do I do with it? And depending on your objective, depending on your income levels, there's a few different ways that you can do that. Now, if you Google how to save money or where to put your money or talk to your neighbors or your coworkers, you'll get 100 different opinions. But it really comes down to what your objective is. You'll hear things such as pay down your debt, buy rental property, put it in the bank, buy gold, buy crypto, whatever it may be. But for small business owners and self-employed 1099 contractors, some of the more common retirement plans are things such as 401ks, solo 401ks, SEP IRAs, and defined benefit plans.
Yeah, when you say common, I mean, they're common to us. We talk about these things every day. We introduce them to customers every day. But for people watching this video, they may not be familiar. So really important, what we're about to talk about is going to give you sort of a 50-foot view of how these things work.
Yeah, they're really designed, as I said, to save for your retirement and save on taxes currently, because as Jason mentioned earlier, is that you can get a fairly large tax deduction on some of these plans. For instance, on a 401k plan, and if you're, say, a self-employed or 1099 contractor, you can open up a solo 401k for yourself. Now, the beautiful thing about that is you're considered both the employee and the employer. So the contribution limits when it comes to the 401k are higher than it may have been when you were an employee of a company or corporation in the past.
So if somebody's 50 or older and they're at a big company, they can contribute what, $30,500 this year to their 401k?
Yeah, that's correct. $30,500 for the year 2024.
But if it's somebody who's running a small business, it's just them, maybe just them and their spouse that works for the company. Let's use you as an example, Scott.
Yeah.
How much could you contribute to a 401k as the business owner and the employee?
Yeah, I can put up to $76,500 for myself for 2024. And, a SEP IRA as well allows you fairly high contribution limits. You could put up to $69,000 into a SEP IRA, or 25% of your net income, whatever is less. And so that gets you a little bit further than the $30,500 with a 401k if you're an employee, say a W-2 employee. And it certainly is much higher limits than traditional and Roth IRAs. But the big bang for your buck comes also in defined benefit plans. So defined benefit plans are another name for a pension. They were designed to give a future payment. And in the calculation for a defined benefit plan is a little bit more complicated than, say, an IRA or 401k. But what you need to understand, what you need to know is that the contribution limits are much higher. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're making more money, you have more money to put away for retirement. Not only can you save extra money for retirement, catch up, or what we might call a supercharge your retirement savings, you can also save a lot more in taxes in the current year. So, for instance, if we use an example here, one of our clients, Judy, she's 52 years old, self employed, does not have any employees. So she's a 1099 contractor. So her net income for this year is $475,000. And she came to us years ago and said, I'm at a stage in my career where I'm able to save much more money. Because before that, she was putting money back into the business. She was paying off debts. She was putting money into career development, things of that nature. But now she's at a point where she hadn't saved a lot for retirement, a little bit through her previous employer. And she feels the stress or the need of trying to save a little bit more as she gets older. And so we introduced the defined benefit plan for her. And at her income, she was able to save $216,000 for retirement for this year, which equates to approximately an $80,000 tax deduction. Now, of course, that the tax deduction is based off of your state, and this is for 2024 and based off her marginal tax bracket.
Yeah, and so that $216,000 that contribution she made to the defined benefit plan, that doesn't show up on her tax return.
Correct. Yeah, that's just a savings, a tax savings today, and we'll have a video in the future a little bit more on taxes because eventually the taxes need to be paid. But the idea was, well, her income is so high, she's already at a high tax bracket. Where can we save on taxes and save for retirement? And if you look at plans such as 401k and SEP IRA, while those are great for somebody like Judy who can save more, the defined benefit plan just has a little bit more bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yep, and I know I interrupted you there. I know you were going to. That's not actually what Judy did. She did do the defined benefit plan, but Scott, dig in a little bit more on how she was able to build that retirement and save on taxes.
Yeah, she actually was able to save $266,000 into her defined benefit plan and into a solo 401k, so she could have both. Now, I know not everyone is going to be in this stage of their career where they can save $266,000 a year. But in her case, she's just at a stage where she could save a lot more. And being with her age, the calculation of defined benefit plan allows her to save that much. So what does that equate to in tax savings? If she's able to save $266,000, she's able to save close to $98,000 in taxes for this year.
Yep. So she put money into a defined benefit plan and a solo 401k to get to that $266,000 number. Almost $100,000 in tax savings. And putting more than $250,000 towards her retirement in 1 year.
Yeah, like I said, not everyone is going to be in that stage of their career where they can save that much. So, Jason, why don't you talk a little bit more about one of the other plans, and maybe if you're not making quite as much money, how that can affect you,
or not quite as much money. It's also how old you are. So, a defined benefit plan is a great program for people. Usually, we see people over 50 years old who can afford to make those contributions. But the other piece that we'll discuss in a different video is that you have to make those contributions with a defined benefit plan. Another example of a customer is we've got a customer named Jacob who's 33 years old and he's making $350,000 a year. He's not living on all of his after-tax income. And so Jacob actually did have the choice to do all of the retirement plans that we've mentioned. He could have done a traditional IRA. He could do a SEP IRA, a solo 401k, or a defined benefit plan. He chose to do a SEP IRA, so he was able to make $50,000 contribution into his retirement plan. And in his tax bracket, that worked out to about $13,000 in tax savings. Well, that doesn't sound as exciting as Judy's $100,000, but he's 33 years old, and you keep saving that in taxes over the course of 10, 20 years. and it adds up pretty quickly, in addition to, of course, the tax deferred growth that the SEP IRA would receive. So Jacob had a choice. Do I do the solo 401k where I put $70,000 into it? Do I do the SEP IRA? He actually could have done a defined benefit plan, but because of the complexity and his age, really, that was the biggest thing. His age made it so that he didn't want to have to make those contributions. And so he went with the SEP IRA. He saved on taxes, and it's still a large contribution that's going to help him retire sooner than a lot of other people.
Yeah, and just keep in mind there are several different ways to save for your retirement, right? And what we're showing are different ways that if you're self-employed, where you're not a W-2 employee, where there's not a 401k already in place, you have to provide this for yourself, right? You have to create this for yourself. And a lot of times people don't do these because it can be a bit overwhelming. They don't really know where to start, right? The old saying goes, it's the start that stops us. Well, in this case, a lot of people don't do these plans because they're not really sure where to start or how complicated it can be. They also don't do them because they're just not aware of all the different options. Remember, there's different contribution levels for these different retirement plans, and there's different restrictions, depending on whether or not you have employees or whether or not you're just a solo practitioner. So there are different levels and different layers of these retirement plans, but we urge you to speak to your team, speak to your advisors, or reach out to us if you have questions about what might be a good fit for you. But the number one reason we get for why haven't people started these plans or put money into these plans, they just weren't at a spot in their career where they could do so. And so typically, hopefully the journey is, as you get older, your earnings and your profits start to increase over time, and then you have more money and able to put away to retirement and hopefully save on taxes. And so that's the idea of these different plans. They're designed for different objectives, different ages, whether or not you have employees, and really how much can you save.
So 3 reasons that people aren't necessarily using these plans, or maybe haven't done it yourself. Number 1, too complex, right? It overwhelms people to think about, well, what do I do with how do I set up a solo 401k? How do I set up a SEP IRA? Number 2, they're not familiar. They've never even heard of the idea that somebody who's a 1099 contractor or a small business owner could actually have a plan like this. And then number 3, Scott mentioned it at the very end, probably the most common, I guess, is just not ready yet. Financially, you're not in a position where you can put the money away. So those are 3 reasons why people haven't heard of these or don't do these plans. But if you are in the position where you now have some free cash flow, whether you're 30 years old or 55 years old or even 65 years old, you need to work with a team, your tax team, your legal team, and your financial team to explore these ideas. If you want our help, we've got a link below to our calendar. You can spend some time with our team, and we'll walk you through your situation and the choices you have and help you decide what's best for you and your family. So you stay tuned. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel. If you felt it was valuable, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments below. And we look forward to kicking out another video in a couple of days, specifically about defined benefit plans.